everyone. Welcome to today's Q&A, Pickup Vectorworks with Jonathan Pickup. Join us for a special Q&A with CAD guru Jonathan Pickup. Jonathan is trained as an architect with more than 30 years of experience. He has been writing and producing Vectorworks manuals and providing customer support for more than 20 years. His company, ArchonCAD, more information later, is the premier provider of third-party manuals and training resources for Vectorworks. He offers monthly webinars and maintains the Visual Knowledgebase for Vectorworks. And Jonathan joins us from New Zealand. Now let me show you where you can find Vectorworks on the Novedge page. Just go to novedge.com, search for Vectorworks. We have all the products and in their iteration. Novedge is changing the way designers purchase 3D software, offering more choices, more freedom, best advice, and faster service. Now, without further ado, I will share Jonathan's screen so we can get started.
Show screen two. Yeah, so there's my screen. So one of the first questions we had was about getting the PDF. So Bradford was asking, how do you take a blueprint drawing, a PDF, and bring it into Vectorworks and scale it and then trace over it? I'm going to talk about the differences in PDFs, but I just want to remind the people that have just arrived, please use the question pane to write your questions so that we've got something to talk about. So Bradford, if we have a look, I've got a drawing here which is a cottage drawing. It's a simple drawing. It's on my other screen. Let me bring that across. So I've got here a simple drawing. It's got a series of things in it. And I'm going to use this particular drawing here, drawing number 4. I'm going to bring this into Vectorworks and show you how to scale it. But the other thing I'm going to remind you is that you can import a multi-page PDF into the drawing if you want. So I've got that right here. That's CJ's cottage. And I'm going to open up Vectorworks. I've got an untitled file here. I'm on a Macintosh. You can do this on a Windows machine as well. And you just drag and drop that file into Vectorworks. And then you choose which page you'd like to use. So for example, I think we said it was page 4. So I could import page 4, or I could import pages 4 to 6. So you can bring those in. Now, if you're going to bring a lot of PDFs from other people in, one of the things you might get, and one of the things we use for annotation, when you've got a lot of detailed construction notes that you want to put into Vectorworks and you want them beautifully formatted and you want to have them in columns and things like that, why not write those words or those long detailed notes? Why not write them in Word and then export that as a PDF in Word and import that Word document into your Vectorworks so that it fits the page, it's got all the formatting you want, it's got the right emboldenment of the things. And the other thing I was going to say is, if you do that trick with the notes, if you choose reference, then when you update the PDF file, it will automatically update next time you open up your Vectorworks document. So that's a great way of linking a PDF to your document. Works really well. But I'm just going to import from page 4 to 6. So it's going to import 3 pages. I'm going to delete a bunch of these because I don't really want them. That's my elevations. Let's put that one over there. That's my electrical plan. I don't need it. And this is my floor plan. Now, the first thing is probably this might already be to scale. But one of the first things I want to talk about was the difference in PDFs. If I import a PDF that's been created from a scanner, so you've scanned blueprints and brought them into Vectorworks, you can't do the next trick that I'm going to do, which is to snap to geometry. There are 2 sorts of PDF files. One's called a raster PDF file, which is nothing more than a bitmap or a series of dots on the screen. And when you zoom into one of those, it goes blurry and it stays blurry, and you can zoom in and you end up with these big lumpy, it looks like it's made out of Lego blocks. It's not that nice. If it's a vector-based PDF like this one is, you can turn on the snap to geometry and you can snap to the corners. Notice that it now says endpoint, endpoint. It actually has the ability to snap. It has the ability to snap to that PDF. So that's quite cool. This one over here, I'm going to do something different to this one because I could do that snapping. But one of the other tricks that sometimes works with a vector-based PDF is to ungroup it. So modify, ungroup. You sure you want to do this? Yes. And it leaves me with a bunch of objects. There's one there, there's one there. So this is the raster information. Notice when I zoom into this raster information, it doesn't get any clearer. It stays fuzzy. But what am I left with behind? Notice I'm left with a series of lines behind. So I've turned my elevation into a line drawing. I think there we are. So those have turned into just lines and polygons. That one's a polygon. There's lines, polygons. I've lost all my text, of course. But that's one of the tricks that I've got, Bradford, for dealing with a PDF file. So let's exit the group and I'll delete that. Exit the group. Okay, so now I'm left with this one here. It's got a lot of information I don't really want. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to edit the crop. And I'm going to try and hide some of this information. I don't want to see all of it. I just need to see that much there. Just under here, there's an edit crop. Let's edit the crop. And so that's one way of getting that information into there. Now there's some dimensions on here, which is really handy. 8 meters, I think, is my dimension. There we are. So I've got 8 meters. I know that that's 8 meters. I forgot what that is, and let's do this one here. That's 3.6 feet, so 3.6 meters, it's 12 feet across. So let's have a look. What can we do? We've got it selected. Important that you have this object selected. If you don't have the object selected and you try to do this trick with scaling objects, you'll notice that the scale objects here is turned on, and I can't turn it off. So this entire drawing, now I don't know if anyone understands what I mean by entire drawing, but the entire drawing is absolutely everything in the file. It's not just what you can see here, it's everything in the resource manager. So if I go to this particular file, I think there's hardly anything in here anyway. Where's it gone? Untitled 1. So if I scaled everything, it would scale that dash, it would scale my door, it would scale my symbol, scales my hatches. It scales absolutely everything. What do I say? Everything, everywhere. So it would scale the entire lot. So if I've got a detail like this block, suddenly it wouldn't be an 8-inch block anymore, it would be scaled as well. So be very careful about that. You need to select the PDF. Then we're going to go to modify on the menu bar. We're going to scale objects. And what do we know? Well, let's try measuring something. So we know that the distance between here and that one is 8 meters. I'm going to be lazy and go 8M. And you notice that it shrunk that down, Bradford. So now that I have this information and I've scaled it, now I can start drawing over it. So I can just get my wall tool and I should be able to snap to that. And I can draw my walls on top. If I had windows or if I knew the window size, and remember I've got all the dimensions here, so that's quite easy. And I had the elevation, so I could measure the elevations as well, although I've deleted them now. But that would be quite handy to be able to do that, just to be able to snap to things. What if they're not like that? What if they're, say, the raster images? That becomes difficult because you can't snap to the dots, and all you can do is to hope that you can zoom in enough to do it. But of course, you do have the dimensions to work to. So if you only had the dimensions, don't forget that you could also go, let's start with the wall, so you can click and you can type in. Now I've got my settings. Let me show you where I get my settings from. Window, data bar options, use floating data bar, and I always use this one. Allow numeric keypad entry for instant data bar activation. The numeric keypad on a full-size keyboard are the numbers on the right-hand side. If you're using a cut-down keyboard like I've got a MacBook Air next to me here, it doesn't have the numeric keys on it, so it's not as easy. The numeric keypad also controls 3D views, which makes it really handy. So I always connect a full-size keyboard to my computers if they haven't got one already. But let me show you why this one's quick. I click to start the wall, and I can type in 8 meters. enter, enter again. And then I can draw the next distance, which is 3600, enter, enter, and then I can come across. And if I come across and I know the building's horizontal, it's even easier because I can use the K key on the keyboard. K for close. And it's a really quick way of getting your walls to close. So those are my tricks with the PDF. So Bradford, in the question column, can you just tell me, did I answer your question correctly? I don't have a raster PDF that would allow us to see the difference, but you'll if I export from Vectorworks, it always comes out as a raster PDF. Sorry, if I export from Vectorworks, let me just say that again. If I export from Vectorworks, it always comes as a vector PDF, allowing me to snap and all that kind of thing. But of course, it also allows other people to do that for you as well. So let me make one. So I'm going to export. I'm going to export this as a PDF. So I'm going to export, and you can choose to export these as layers. But this is the trick here. If you want someone to not have the advantages that I've just shown you, you can rasterize your PDF when you export it. Yes. And where should we put it? And we'll put it in CJ's drawings again. That'd be easy for me to find. The non-consent building, CJ's cottage, and we'll call it Raster. Cool, so let's import that other one again. So this is, let's go back to a design layer. We'll create a new design layer. This one here, active layer scale 1 to 100. One of the tricks you can do, is if you know that your drawing is at a scale of say 1 to 50, or what would yours be? Is it quarter inch, half inch? I forget. No, quarter inch. So if it's quarter inch and your drawing's a quarter inch, in my case, I know it's 1 to 50. When you import that PDF, it can be closer to the right scale. So let's drag that in. Just one page. Did I only do one page? Cottage, which ones I import? Let me do that again. Got the Raster, that's the one I wanted. Let's drag that one in. One page, okay. There it is there. Now this time when I zoom in, you'll notice that the corners don't have the rounded edges like they did before. So they are a series of dots on the screen. So it always looks dotty. So when I turn on snap to geometry, you'll notice that I can't snap to the corners. There's no snapping on anything. You can't snap to anything. So that's one of the ways that you can stop people having that advantage. And if I ungroup this, there's no raster and there's no sort of vector information. So if I delete the bitmap, there's nothing there. So remember that if you export the PDF, there is a way for people to convert, particularly in Vectorworks. You can copy that. And if you send it to other CAD programs, quite often those other CAD programs also have that ability to explode or to ungroup your vector PDFs. So I hope that answered that question. Should we get rid of some of these some of these questions, Barbara, as we go through them?
Sure.
Is there besides using the world Z for origins, is there a good trick to get the first floor and the second floor wall textures to align without a lot of fiddling? I'm sorry, without using the world Z, there isn't much. Unless you create three-dimensional textures or three-dimensional information. So let's have a look at CJ's cottage. Who's this? This is Andrew. So Andrew, could you just have a look at what I'm doing at the moment? I'd like to have a look at this drawing here. and we'll start with the cover sheet. So if I just update these, Andrew, just have a look and see. You can see I've got textures on my building. So this is a simple building, Andrew. This is plywood board with battens at just under 16-inch centers. What are they? 14-inch centers, 400mm centers. So they want a regular series of battens. They want the windows to line up. They want facings around the windows. They want a batten across the top of the Z flashing. So there's they want very specific settings or very specific setting out for these battens. Can I do this with a texture? Not really. I find it very difficult to do this with a texture because the texture doesn't always do the things you want. For example, a texture won't put the facings around the windows. If I turn off the sketchy nature of that, it's just my sketchy nature. So there, Andrew, you can see more clearly that these aren't just a series of texture battens. This is a series of three-dimensional battens. I actually made a series of 3D battens that I could apply to the building. Now I've done this on other buildings as well, and it is a little bit of work, but it's not too bad. It's actually not as bad as you might think. So I quite often build three-dimensional model of the cladding because I find that's the easiest way to get exactly what I want, to show that this has got a facing underneath, and when they're on the top, they line up on the edges. And in Tom's cottage, he's got something similar, but he also wanted to change some of those pieces because he doesn't want the flashing. He wants to expose the flashing, and so the flashing's a different width to the other parts. Let's just turn the view a little bit, and you can see the flashing is thinner than that board there. That's the flashing. It's thinner. It actually goes over that a little bit, but it just gives me that freedom of building the three-dimensional parts. Is it difficult to build these? I don't think it's that difficult. So we're going to go back to a blank file, and we'll do a blank file. So let's get rid of that. These are three-dimensional. What I need is to show you how we deal with it with windows. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to duplicate this layer so that we've got two stories. So duplicate that one. So I've got floor 1 and floor 2. The elevation of this one is 2450. 2450. There we are. So I should have one sitting on top of the other. There they are. Let's go to our layer options, and we'll do show snap modify others. I can see both of them. I'm going to put windows in. Windows, regular window. So I'll put one in there. And I should be able to put one on the bottom wall. But I'll change layers just to make sure. So now I've got things that don't line up. We'll also go back to this one and we'll give it a peak. Usually I use the roof to do this. I want to add a peak to that. Doesn't want to do that for me. I'm just going to leave it at the moment. What are these walls doing? These walls are too high. So let's go back to that. Show snap others. Select all. 2450. That's better. Okay, so I've got these two sets of walls. So how do I create that texture? I hope this is something you guys find interesting. I tend to use a three-dimensional tool called Extract. Where's it gone? Where's Extract? Extract. And I select that wall and that wall together, and then I go Enter. So what it does, it creates a group. This group is a series of two-dimensional objects or planar objects, two polylines. And if I right-click and add those together, it creates a single object. I can then extrude that object. The thickness of my board is probably nearly an inch, so 20 millimeters, and that creates an extrusion. If I edit that extrusion by double-clicking on it, I'm now looking at my extrusion. I'm going to go to an orthogonal view. I'm going to look square into it. So I'm now looking directly into my extrusion. And I'm going to put these boards were 65 millimeters wide. And I'm going to duplicate those. Probably need about 30 of them. I'll make them 16 inches apart. And it creates a whole bunch. And then I go select all, right click, intersect surface. Vectorworks has now calculated where the boards line up. And then I can go edit, invert selection, which will swap what's selected now with all the other stuff, and I delete it, and it leaves me with that behind. Exit my group. And now I've got three-dimensional wall boards, which is reasonably quick to create. And if I have to make a change, if I move a window, I can move my wall boards a little bit. But this is one of the techniques I use, Andrew. If it's a linear type texture or a linear type cladding, I'll use this type of technique. I've used it a few times, and I think the results in the 3D model are actually quite nice. I know it sounds like a real hassle, but I found that if I added some of the stuff to my right click, so for example, I added things like when I go into that group and I edit this information, I go select all, intersect surface is already there, but also I've added invert selection to my right click on my other computers. I need to add it to this one. If anyone wants to see me how to, wants me to show you how to do that, let me know in the question pane and I'll do that. But so there's sometimes, Andrew, where a texture works really well, and there are some times where a three-dimensional object works really well, and you really need to choose which time you want to use those things. So for block work, I tend to use a three-dimensional model, three-dimensional object. For things like siding, I'll use the 3D object. Yeah, I know it looks like a bit of a hassle, but I find the results actually really pleasing. So I hope that answers your question. And Andrew, there's another Andrew's got another question here, which is there a way to get shadows to show on polygons in 3D views? I'm trying to think what you mean by get shadows to show on polygons. Are you using the polygon render? So we're using, and there's no sunlight in here, so I better put a sunlight in. I always use the heliodon to put in a sun. It's a really quick way to put in a sun. That's currently set in New Zealand. Let's change that to USA. San Francisco. There, Barbara. What time of the day is it? So let's go up here. So I need to go OpenGL options. We're going to draw edges. We're going to choose very high. We're going to have shadows, high quality shadows. So now when I zoom in, you should see that there's a shadow. So Andrew, again, this is one of the reasons why I quite like this three-dimensional model part, is because if you have a look, you can see the shadows of my boards. Now I think the other Andrew, what you're looking at is you want the view rendering. I think you're talking about using this one, aren't you? Shaded polygon, which I don't like. I don't like the results of that. I find it doesn't cast the shadows. I tend to use OpenGL rendering. That's my go-to rendering. It's really quick. Light stay, it stays rendered. It doesn't have to re-render when you move it around. I think the results are pretty pleasing. So how do we do that? So what do? I use my extract tool. I use extract a lot. I think it's really cool. So extract those two. They're a group. Let's enter the group. Let's right click. Let's add the surface again. Let's extrude that 20 millimeters again. And let's enter that. We're going to look at it square on. We're going to draw our 65 millimeter. And we're going to do that again. So we only need 20 this time. So we go select all. And we're going to go intersect surface. And then edit, invert selection, delete, exit my extrusion, exit the group. So I don't know what you think, Andrew, but that seems reasonably quick, doesn't it, to get that information? So great for board and battens, but not for a center match board texture. True. Yeah, and I'm afraid if you don't use World Z, there's very little you can do to muck around. And if you go to using, so Andrew, do you know about this tool here, the attribute mapping tool? If you start doing that, then it starts becoming a challenge because the texture often doesn't appear on your wall. You've got to move it till it lines up, and the Z for using the Z for world values is probably the quickest way to do it. So Barbara, I'm going to delete. I'm going to bin some of these questions because I think we've answered them. We've done that one. Review taking blueprint. Yeah. Is there a way to get shadows? I think I've covered that one. Have I covered that one, Andrew? The shadows and the polygons, showing polygons. I wouldn't use the polygon, the shaded polygon. I'd use OpenGL. I'm afraid that the shaded polygons is an old technology. I very rarely use it. But no, you can't. There's some things you can't do with it. There's a question there from Dennis about how do you create an office standard library of symbols? There's no real easy way to do this, Dennis. You do need to sit down and think about it quite carefully. I have created over the years an office standard of symbols. So for example, those are my electrical symbols. I've got a single library file that has all of my resources in it, Dennis. So absolutely everything that I need should be in here. All my foundation details, my steel objects, my timber objects that I need, doors, and actually, I think I've got a little skirting I created the other day. So the other day I created a piece of timber, lumber, I think you call it. I created a piece of timber the other day. I think it was a 180 fascia, this one here. I created this one the other day. I don't think that one's in my library file. So if I create it in a new project, if I'm working on a project and I create a new symbol, you can see here, I've got a series of folders for my symbols. So let's go back. No, it didn't work. Okay, so timber, that's my timber there. Let's scroll down. There's my library, there's my timber. So Dennis, this is a new one here. This is a new fascia I created. You can see that one's got the notch top and bottom. This one's just got a notch on one end. So I need to drag that into my timber in my library. And as I drag it in, Vectorworks will open up. And if I haven't saved already, it'll open up that file. You can see my screen was just slow for a second. So it opened up that file in the background. It copied that resource from there into my library and saved it. Now the office standard, Dennis, you should store this office standard as part of your, where are they gone? User group. So it should be a workgroup library. So you can have a single file in your workgroup library, but you do need to set it up as a workgroup. A workgroup is specifically designed to be shared amongst people in the office. So if you're on your own, don't worry about it, just use a regular file. But the idea would be you create a network location, you set that up as a workgroup library, and then you use this technique, Vectorworks preferences. user folders, and here you'd use the add button to add a work group folder location in the network so that everyone can see that file. Why do I use a single file? Well, the answer is that if you look at the way Vectorworks is designed, there are lots of locations for object styles, for templates, office standards, and so on. Yes, you can use those locations if you are very competent and you really want to be able to take care of that, of every one of those individual folders. There are a lot of them. And my challenge is that although Vectorworks does come these days with this, where's it gone? Tools, batch, there's a migration manager, that's what I'm looking for. There's a migration manager that will migrate all of your resources from one place to another. Whereas I've just got a single library, I don't need to use the migration manager. I just update my file each time I get a new copy of Vectorworks. But the challenge becomes if you start having too many locations for your information, it's not quick and easy to store your information in your file. It does take quite a while, and there's a lot of things you really need to think about when we start doing this. So if we have a look at things like materials, what I'll do is I'll copy, where's my untitled, there we are, timber. Okay, so I've got some timber objects, got some foundations, doors and windows. I want to copy my electrical things. So let's grab electrical. So here I should have a folder called electrical. It should be at the top, there it is. Electrical, let's copy that into that file. Replace the texture, yeah, do this for all my actions. Okay, so I've now got electrical, so I'm in this current file, I've got electrical information. So when I place something like a light or a socket, I think you call them a power receptacle. So when I place one of those, I make sure that I've gone through my symbol options. So what does my symbol options say? Well, they're wheel-based. I want that to insert in a wall with no breaks. I want that to be electrical on the classical electrical. So why would I bother to make sure that it's going on the right class? Well, it just makes it quick and easy for me. If I don't have to think about what class I'm putting that electrical symbol on, I can carry on making my symbols, or I can carry on using my electrical symbols. They will turn up on the drawings I want, and they won't accidentally turn up on drawings that I don't want. So I think this is I think one of the powerful techniques. When you're building your symbol library, Dennis, a couple of things to think about. One is what you want it to look like. That's a given. But the other things are, do you want it to insert in a wall, yes or no? The other thing is, do you want it to automatically assign to a class? And I think that's really important. So let's go back to this file here, and we'll go back to active only. We'll go to a floor plan, and we'll go to this floor. So I played with that electrical symbol, didn't I? So if you just have a look up here, Dennis, my active layer is none. If I grab my symbol, there it is there. Now I told it to insert in a wall. So that should automatically insert into a wall. Just let me go back and check that again, because I have a feeling I just ignored all of that. So let's edit my symbol options, insert in walls, and okay. Now you'll notice when I go near a wall, it goes red. Why do I insert these in walls? What happens when I change my design? Because I've said insert in walls, when I change my design, those switches and sockets go with the wall, which I think is a really cool trick. The other thing, let's go back to the, I need a light switch. There's my switch. Let's check my symbol options again. It should insert in walls. It should be no break. So let's make that one a switch. And you'll notice, Dennis, that it automatically rotates to suit my wall. Again, if I move my wall, the switch goes with it, which is kind of a cool trick. So I don't have to muck around and follow this around. So those are a couple of things you need to think about. But now let's have a look. My current class is none. It's my active class. what class did these end up on? They ended up on services electrical. So if I turn that class off, services electrical, where's it gone? Services electrical. Let's turn that off. They've all gone. All the right ones have gone. What's wrong with this one? Fixtures. Why is it on fixtures? Let's just check my symbol options. Oh, services fixtures, that should be services electrical. And so they should all have gone onto that class. I just didn't check when I did that. So let's put those in again. Now it might be a bit weird this time because when I put these in, they might disappear. So let's turn off that again, and they disappear. So that means that I don't have to think about what class I'm putting those on because the class is taking care of that. I don't have to worry about whether it's breaking into the wall or inserting in a wall, so I've taken care of that as well. And if you really want to go nuts, you can also edit the three-dimensional hole option to make a hole in some places and not in others. It's really quite cool. Symbols are really powerful. And the final one I wanted to really get to think about, let's turn that class back on. So the other thing I really want you to think about is where do you want the insertion option to be for those objects? You may have noticed that those objects actually arrived at a specific point. So where the 0 line is, 0 and 0, right here in the middle is my insertion location. If I want that symbol to be off the wall just ever so slightly, I could move it up from that 0 point. That would still stick onto the wall, but it would be just off the wall the tiniest little bit. See how it's just off the wall? Let's have a look at this symbol, I forget what you call it, but I call it a socket, a power receptacle, I think you call it something like that. Let's have a look at this. And you'll notice that my insertion point again is the bottom of that symbol. Now, the way you make that is when you create a symbol, you say I want to use the next mouse click and you choose that location so that when you go to place those symbols, they automatically place at the right location. You don't have to muck around with moving them. They stick on the wall. That part there's the bit that sticks to the face of the wall, and it just makes it really quick. You'll also notice that my line weight is red. It's red, but it's 0.18 line. So I'm consistent about the line weights. I'm consistent about the classes, and I build them into a library. So Dennis, you heard Barbara say that I've been using Vectorworks for a little while. It has taken me a while to build these things. And yeah, one job is going to cost a lot of time because you're going to be building these office standards. But you might find that if you've been in practice for a while anyway, you've already got all the information you need to build your office standard, and you can use the information you've already got in other drawings and gradually make that into a user library. Some of you guys subscribe to my website, I know, and you probably know that you can actually go to my website and grab my entire library anyway. I don't mind. I give it away to my subscribers. So every once in a while I'll update it, but it's got, it's just got stuff in it that I've used over the years. It's got line types and hatches and stuff like that, and images that I've used, sketches I've done. I sometimes use these for demonstration purposes. You can get all the stuff. It's got all my hatches in it. It's got all my line types in it. It's got all my utilities are in here. So I just have this as a single place to go and get all the stuff that I need. So Dennis, does that answer your question, or is there more information you'd like? Yeah, Dennis, it's never, so one of the other things, Dennis, with your library, I was going to say, hands up who's finished their library, building their library. There should be no one putting their hand up because your work is never finished. Did I just add something to my library? You'd think that after all these years, my library would be finished, except I work on a new project. I need something I haven't got before. I convert one, I actually duplicated one of my fascia boards and I just edited it. Is that in my library? No, but I've put in my library today. So my library is constantly being looked at, constantly being managed. And I just think it's quite a useful trick to have a single library I don't know how much memory you guys have got, or whether you can keep track of too much information. I have trouble remembering where I put my car keys. I don't need you know, 10s or 20 files to have all my information. I'd never remember where they all are. It's just a hassle. Here I've got one place to go. But Dennis, I know it might sound like there's a lot of work to do, but there's a lot of rewards. When it comes to drawing your buildings, you save a substantial amount of time if you start using these techniques. Remember that Vectorworks improves things all the time. What did they improve recently? They improved, let's go to Tom's Cottage. I think I've got it in Tom's Cottage. Recently, Vectorworks improved things like the data tag and the label tool. Where's my drawing label? So this drawing label, did they change it? Sure, they changed it. And now I've created this label that's got a scale, this one that hasn't got a scale, and this drawing label. These should be in my library. I think they are, but I'm not sure. But this is new in Vectorworks 2021. This ability to have back referencing is new. So I created some labels that would do it for me. Let's choose that one. And I place that, and it doesn't give me the, yes, here it won't give me the back reference. But on a detailed drawing, if I look at my details, architectural details, I think they are. You can see here, Dennis, there's my flashing. So there's my back reference detail. Because if I want to change that to a different drawing label, I can, because of the way they've made these styles. Let's replace that with another one. And so I've got a series of styles that I like to use, perfect for what I want to do. And because there's part of my library, I can import them into any project. And what I've done is I've just added them back to my library so that they're available whenever I need them. I also have a whole lot of little utilities that I use. I don't know if anyone noticed them, but there's a whole lot of these little utility scripts that I carry around. Drawing details. Where's it gone? It's probably on the other screen now. I've got two screens going. I've got stuff on the other screen as well. But I have these little utilities, and they help me out. So they are also part of my library, so I can find them again. Let's have a look. So Dennis, did that answer your question on the library? Stan, I think you said it did. Okay, let's get rid of that one and that one. When driving in a model in the layers with OpenGL mode, can you show sketch mode as if you were in a sheet layer? I don't think you can. So when driving in a model in the layers with OpenGL mode, can you show sketch mode as if you were in a sheet layer? Basically, can you have OpenGL as a background and sketch as the foreground inside layers? I don't think so. You can do a static, so you can actually do a static view. Let's go back to this one. So you could do a static view, which I think is, I don't want to use that one. So you can go select all, and you can do convert copy to lines. Modify, convert copy to lines. So Andrew, please don't use convert to lines. It will explode your model and you won't have it ever again. Use convert copy to lines. There's a dialog box somewhere. Here it is. So convert copy to lines. We can use dash hidden line rendering. And then on that group, I think if I go inside the group, I should have the lines, and then I think I can apply sketch to those. Rendering, sketch. What's going on with that? So let's send that to the front. So maybe we can't do it. I'm having trouble making it appear. Rendering, sketch. So now the whole view's gone sketched. not just what you wanted. Let's move that group out of the way. So I was hoping I could just apply sketch to just that one part, but when I choose sketch, it goes to everything. Objects, 61 lines. I thought I could just go sketch here, but it applies to everything. So the simple answer is no. And the other problem with this, as soon as you change your view, your sketch rendering doesn't keep up to date. You might notice that I've got my OpenGL options I've set to have have very high, and I've got the draw edges. That's the edges off, that's the edges on. So I don't know if that helps, but no, you can't do no is the simple answer. I'm just deleting some of these questions. Okay, so you need help. You've got a split floor level. All right, so let's go to the next layer down. Let's delete all those bits. And you've got a slab that's at a different layer. So we've got a slab here, and we're going to have a split level slab for this. And we're going to go right click and create objects from shapes. And this is going to be a slab. Okay, and in 3D, there it is there. So I've got that slab, and then I'm going to copy this all across over here. Just holding down my Option key, send those both to the back. Okay, so this slab here, we're going to drop this down by 12 inches. Oh, 12 millimeters. I'm in millimeters, aren't I? 12 inches. That's better. So there you are. So you've got two slabs, split level. You can also, it doesn't matter, this could be 3 feet down. Select the walls. And don't forget this really powerful technique of fit walls to objects. I use this a lot, this fit walls to objects. And you can use fit walls to objects, and you constrain the bottom of the walls to the objects on floor 1, and the walls go down. It's kind of a cool trick. That's it. So, Rich, that's a really quick way to get those. If you don't want to do it like that, you can do it manually. So you should be able to move these points manually if you want. But I quite like that, fit walls to objects. It's just an easy way to do it. It's a lot easier, Rich, if you put your objects on a different layer. So for a roof, I put them on a different layer. So we've done that one. What's the best way to export 3D generated sections that live in sheet layers? I'm not sure. Let's have a look. I got section. Yeah, so I don't have one handy that I can show you, because my sections, like this section here that I've drawn, if we go into the here and have a look, select all and delete it, you'll see that actually this is all drawn in 2D. I turned on the 3D model, and then I drew all of the stuff in 2D. And the reason I drew it all in 2D is because I want to have really fine control over everything that's here. So you can see I've got battens, and I've got little beads here, and I've got a separation between those things, and I've got an accurate height. I've got double studs at the double top plate. It's like a detail, but this is the quality I like to do. But if you're exporting this, let's have a look. Export DWG DXF. The only thing I can think of for exporting, so you want to export a 3D, sorry, I don't understand. Do you want to export the 3D generated sections as 3D or as 2D drawings? Oh, the shadows. Oh, Andrew, you were talking about putting the shadows on you'll import an image. You want to show artwork? Oh, that's a different, there's a dialog box somewhere, isn't there? Oh, yeah, this is what I was waiting for. To export this, I will wonder whether you do this one here where you export the viewports as 2D graphics in model space. Do that and see what your results are like. So back to the shadows in section, back to here. So if we go back to the shadows, we want to import a graphic. I'm not sure I've got an easy one to do. But I think I've got an image prop I can just import. Okay, let's import this one. And we'll turn off, set it 3D component, and we'll turn off the, so this is an image prop, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the auto rotate. And we'll move it down just a little bit. So Andrew, that's an image prop off the wall. And you can see it's clearly got the shadow. So when you import the images, going to go to model, create image prop. We're going to import an image file. We just need something. What have I been working on lately? I'll just put this over here. I'm just going to look for something. I'm writing a manual on plants and planting at the moment. Okay, so here's all my planting images. So let's import that as an image prop. Let's make it 6 feet high. There's my width. We'll turn off the auto rotate and we'll go okay. And it should arrive in the middle of the drawing. So there it is there. Let's put that just here and I'll just nudge it down a little bit. So there's my thing there. So Andrew, you can see that is casting a shadow. That's an image prop. And the thing I like about the image prop is that it's 3-dimensional. So it turns around with me. I can change the height. I can change the width. Let's make it 4 feet wide. I can change the elevation. So I can make it sit at 5 feet high. And you can see it's clearly casting a shadow across that thing. And that would be my solution for what you're trying to do. So I hope, Andrew, that covers that thing. Best way to export the 3D. I think I've done that. Grouping the extract surfaces across layers is new to me. Yep, so Andrew, you have to turn on show snap modify others to do that. And if they don't line up perfectly, Vectorworks will know. So be careful of that one. Yeah, great for board and batten, but not for a sentiment. Yeah, okay. Is there a way to share an image with Jonathan? Oh, you'll have to email it to me. Andrew, I hope I've answered your question now, but it would be a good idea if you've got one of these questions would be to email it to Barbara before we start so that we can, I can do some preparation work.
Indeed, so you can always, you can always email barbara@novedge.com for future webinars.
Warren, you've got a question about do you set up any of your symbols for molding profiles to insert as a group for extrusion purposes? You can, but the best way if you're going to do that for extrusion purposes, you might notice that a lot of my pieces of timber have got a little cross at them sometimes. This one doesn't, but this one's got lines in it. That would be a poor symbol to use as a profile. If you wanted to use this as a profile for extrusion purposes, you're going to have to get rid of these lines. So let's do, have I got untitled? Timber. Okay, so there's timber here. This timber's got little objects that help me snap it together. Let me show you how that works. So I've got this weatherboard. And so it's designed to work from the top down. I should really have made it work from the bottom up, but you learn. So it goes there, and then there, and then there. And you can see that those little crosses, those little 2D locus things, are designed to make sure that they snap together accurately. The trouble is when I convert that to a group, Apple K or Control K, but you'll notice it becomes a group because these objects are still there. That one and that one are still there. Now, if you change that symbol and get rid of those little bits, let's edit my 2D components. If I get rid of that piece and I get rid of this piece, now when I explode one of these, is that still a symbol? That's still a symbol. So when I go convert to group, you notice it just becomes a polygon. So if it's a single object, like a single polygon, then you can do what you want and you can have molding profiles for extrusion purposes. I don't very often use them like that. What I often do with my symbols is I create, so for example, if I've got a floor and I've got a wall and I want to have a symbol that'll do something like a skirting or a baseboard, I think you call it. Where's my timber? I've got a baseboard that I use for commercial, or sorry, for when I'm doing a fancy building. There's my symbol there. Where's it gone? I want to use that one. There it is. So you'll notice that when I place that, there's a little, that little cross there. It is just 2 millimeters away. Now let's rotate, flip horizontal. So that little symbol there, it's because I've got it that way. When I stick it next to the wall, it sticks off the wall just a small amount. I've got lots of symbols like that that I use that have got just a little bit of space so that I can stick them together and they show up nicely. Detail parts, I think there's another one. This is my ceiling channel, and you can see what I do is I go to the rafter. Quite often I've got a rafter that goes like that at 30 degrees, and I want that metal batten, that's called a rondo batten, and I want it to sit just off the rafter. And so you can see I can use the rafter to place it, but the actual image itself is just off that rafter a little bit, and that makes it really handy. Those 2D locus points make it really handy to place those more easily. You'll see there are things like the gutter's got one of them in it, the jib cove has got them in it, and I use them a lot. The standard window's got a couple in it, and it helps me to line up my standard setting perfectly. It's really cool. So again, Warren, creating your symbol library is really important. Why do some library categories are numbered and some are not? The numbers relate to my specification standard. Yeah, sorry, Warren, I don't know much about Marionette scripts. I can write a poor one, but I can't write a great one. So I think, Frank, I've answered the question about the artwork on the wall. Andrew, I think I've answered that now, haven't I? And I've got it indoors and want to cast shadows on it. I think, have I still done that, Andrew? I think I have. As 2D drawings, I think I've answered the 2D drawings. Yeah. So Andrew, some of those categories in my resource manager, they relate to my specification system that I use. Foundations, timber. I use a master specification system that's available here in New Zealand. And it's a nationwide specification system, and the numbers relate to the construction of things. It's called the Coordinated Building Index, I think. So I think I've answered that question. I think I've done that one. I think I've done the art on the wall. So Andrew, did I answer your question about putting the art on the wall by using an image prop? I hope that answered that question. Okay, so what didn't you want it inside the building? Isn't it just a matter of me dragging that so it's inside here and just off the wall a little bit? Isn't it the same thing? There's the shadow. And if you want to put a roof on top of this, in order to cast shadows, you need light. You need to cast shadows on the image prop. Oh, okay, right. Now this image prop, when I drag it along, now this image prop's got shadows on it. So what part of my settings are different to yours? Let me create the image prop again. Modify, model, create image prop. Import an image, import a different one. Okay, so one of the things that look out for is this constant reflectivity. That's what can stop you seeing the shadows. But I would use an image prop still. And that constant reflectivity is one of the things that can stop you receiving those, stops that object from seeing the shadows. Let's select my image prop. Not reflectivity. Now remember that by using an image prop, you've actually created a texture. And the texture should be called something like, not St. Nicholas, should be a number. Timber. There it is. That's my texture. Let's edit the texture. So it's an image. It's got glow reflectivity. So watch out for that because that can stop it. Let's turn off none. Let's have no reflectivity. Okay. I would look out for that reflectivity. But I'd still use an image prop because you can edit that texture. You can change the transparency to none. You can add a bump to it. The glow, I think, is the one. If we edit the glow, emit light, add matte reflectivity, and the brightness. Be careful of those. I'm trying to remember what I used to have. Image none, but it's still accepting shadow. So with an image prop, you still, I think with an image prop, you'll still have the ability to see the shadow. But it's that constant reflectivity that you need to worry about. And if you get rid of that, then it can be a lot easier for you to see the light. Quite often my plants don't have the shadows. Do you actually extrude the wall boards? Yes, if it's quick, if they're not too complicated. If the image prop is not see-through. Yeah, so I think I made my image prop not see-through. Move it so the shadow cuts through the green part. Okay, so you want me to move that across so it cuts through the green part. So it's still there. I can still see it okay. I wouldn't use a polygon. I would use an image prop. An image prop creates the texture. Then you can play with whether or not it accepts light, whether it glows, and so on. Of course, you can make it glow. I think it might be the matte reflectivity. Let's make that 100 like it was before. Add the matte reflectivity. Now that should have updated. I used to have that problem, but I would go back and look at the texture for that. How are we going for time, Barbara? We nearly, oh, we're up.
We're nearly done. So that was a packed session.
According to my watch, we're over time. So apologies, everybody, if we're over time. Sorry, I got carried away.
Well, the more the better usually, but
yeah, so
I don't want to steal your time.
I usually forget this part, Barbara, you know, referencing people back to my website. I've recently started adding the manuals to this. I've got the webinars. I've got webinars set up. Those of you that are my subscribers, I've actually placed the webinar sessions. You can actually book to the end of the year now. So I set them all up for the entire year. You can put them in your diary for the rest of the year. I still run these every month. I still record them. They're still available. This is my new website for those who haven't been here. And it's a lot quicker to search. So you can go search. We can look at materials. We didn't get a chance to look at materials. Maybe next time, Barbara.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you so much. I am taking the screen back. Sadly, let me, okay, thank everybody for attending. And I also want to show you, want to remind you that the recording will be uploaded on YouTube and Vimeo. Just search for Novedge. And let's go back to the page where you can find Vectorworks at novedge.com. We have very good prices, best phone assistance, just, the same people that bring you Jonathan Pickup every month. I mean, they're probably, I hope we've gained your trust for now. So give us a call anytime for any information. We have complimentary Vectorworks product. We have all the Vectorworks line, and we have Jonathan on our side. So best of the best.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Thanks for
My friend.
thanks for joining us today, and have a great rest of the day, Jonathan. Your day is just beginning, and great rest of the day for everybody else. Bye bye,
Thank you for
everybody.
having me, Barbara.
Bye.
Bye.